So I had to come in and make a quick entry. I was a little bit, it's almost like I had a nightmare. I had an uneasy feeling. I was listening to the man, and he was mumble japping. That's mumble japping is when you're kind of drunk and you have no one to talk to, and you're just sitting there talking to yourself. And I came and I sat down beside him. I said, "Hey, why are you mumble japping over here, my friend?" He said, "Oh, I didn't see you there, dog. I'm sorry." And he began to say, he said, "Did you see without these two wackadoos from Lauderdale, or they're from Florence, Alabama, or Lauderdale, Alabama. Nobody knows but these people are a couple of winners, and it's almost given me an uneasy feeling." And I said to the man, I said, "My friend, maybe you shouldn't watch these disheartening stories that the news seems to foist upon us so frequently. It brings us down." And the man said, "Well, I just was, the man kind of got huffy. He said, "I know you don't read, dog, but I read, okay?" And it was bumming me out. I couldn't, I was trying to get off the war in Russia with the Ukrainians, and I was trying to get off the big steal and who was going to win. And now they're trying to bombard me with abortion issues. And I was just trying to, relax. I was thumbing through the day's stories, the topical events, they call them, the topical. Anyways, what got me was this girl. And so the man, he went on to say, the man says, "You got this lady, okay? Her name is Vicky White, and she's hooked up with this guy called Casey White, and she is an assistant director of corrections. She's 56 years old, and her name is Vicky White, and she worked in Lauderdale County, and she was having an affair with Casey White. So her name is Vicky White. She's 56. His name is Casey White. He's 38." And the funny thing is, they're having a relationship for 2 years. He's been incarcerated for stabbing a woman and killing a woman, stabbing her and killing her. And this woman hooks up with this guy. She's like, "Oh, the stabber. I can reform a stabber. Don't worry. I know how to handle the stabbers. He's not going to kill me. Don't worry about it." So she hooks up Vicky White with Casey White. And they're from, from down there in Alabama where there's a lot of whites running around. But, they're not related, so to say. They're distantly, but they're not formally related. So that's a good thing. They have the last name, but they're not formally. But anyways, and I said, "All right, so what's the big, And he says, the man says, well, she helps him escape from jail, and they go on a wild goose chase, and they're chasing him down, and they stay free for 10 days, and eventually they're apprehended after 10 days. But when you read about it, you're like, there's video footage of her walking him out and putting him in the back of her sheriff's car, and then they disappear. And she sold her house and her 4 acres of land at auction for $95,000. $95,000 is all she got, well below market value. All right, so she's cashing all the chips out, and the day she helps him escape was her last day of work, and the paperwork for her retirement wasn't even fully processed. It was her last day of work over here. So this woman on the last day of work forgoes her retirement, sells her house out so she can get $95,000. You ain't gonna live that long on $95,000. She buys under a false alias. She had to buy with cash. She buys a $45,000, $50,000 vehicle that they then abandon within 6 or 7 days. This woman, this is the thought process this woman's having. She's hooking up. She's having sex every so often in different facilities, but in this facility in Lauderdale, she had a sexual relationship with this guy. And the day she retires, before her paperwork's processed, she gives up her retirement. She walks this guy out into her patrol car, and they drive off into the sunset together. She'd sold her house at auction for $95,000 and 4 acres, well below market value, so she could cash all her chips in and go on a freaky deek free-for-all ride. As far as $95,000, maybe $50,000. You pay $45,000 for a car. And so they drive their sheriff car the day they escaped to that car she bought under a false alias. And then they drive around. They get apprehended in Indiana, Evansville, Indiana, I wouldn't want to try to be caught dead in Evansville, Indiana. That's where they're hiding out. They get caught, you know. If I got to be caught, if I have to make my last stand, if the last place I see, I'm going to try to find someplace better than Evansville, Indiana. But whatever. That's me. I'm an idiot dog. I'm a fool, you know. But this woman and her same named, much younger, that same surname, much younger man, her relationship she was in with the guy who was a stabber murderer of women, a stabber woman. He's like to stab women and kill them. But that's who she picked because she thought she could reform him. She said, I know how to handle the stabbers. But after 10 days, the manhunt ended in Lauderdale County. No, she's from Lauderdale County. It ended in Evansville County. And I interrupted the man. I said, all right. So it's it's a freaky deak story. I mean, why would this woman do this? I know, but I mean, maybe you should, try to get onto something else. Maybe you should try to read something like a fantasy about like a unicorn or something. And the man says, well, just to put the topper on it, okay? You think this woman is she's cashing out all the chips, she's spending her money wildly, she's leaving her whole life behind, she doesn't have nothing but the clothes on her back, and her man, the stabber woman, murderer man that she loves so much from prison. And she was all the way in because she does a Velma and Louise kind of suicidal, self-inflicted gunshot wound at the end. And, what the report says that Casey White and Vicky White led the police on a car chase that ended with a wreck. They led them on a car chase that ended with a wreck. And Indiana authorities said Vicky White, who was driving the Cadillac, this is what she buys, a Cadillac. It must have cost her $65,000. She has been hospitalized, the report says, with very serious injuries from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And, so this woman was like, okay, the ride's over. I wish I would have been able to spend more of the remaining of my $95,000, and she offs herself. So that woman was on a freak ride. I said, geez, I know, but you don't want to get, as a dog, you don't want to get involved with people's lives too personally, You don't want to be, you want to be empathetic, but you don't want to be like one of them people that suffers the same thing that the other person vicariously suffers through the other person. You got to watch some sports, or maybe you should try to find an I Love Lucy, or maybe you should go have some dark chocolate. Dark chocolate's got antioxidants. It's good for you. And the man said, yeah, you're right. I mean, I got to do something. Maybe I need to take a walk. And so the man, he stood up and he did like 3 cumbersome jumping jacks. Like the house was thudding with a cumbersome jumping jacks. And then he sat back down and he said, what channel's Matlock on? He says, I want to think I'm going to watch a little bit of Matlock. And I said, that's all right by me. But I said, I'm getting sold. I said, hey, but can we see what the weather's going to be first? Let me watch the weather, then we'll flip it over to Matlock. And the man said, okay, that sounds good, whatever. It's good for me.